All right, we are now live with the panel. I'm Keith Cline, the founder of VentureFizz. We are a website that helps people navigate their careers, and we provide a lot of content about the inside look of companies. So we also do a lot of events, and this is a perfect example. This is the second event of our five-part AI Career Level Up series. So there's three more events after this, and it's been consecutive Wednesdays at noon Eastern Standard Time. So a lot of you have registered for all the events. Hopefully well, I'll see you next Wednesday. But I'm really excited about today's event because we're going to hear from three leaders who are driving Aura's transformative AI strategy. AI is everywhere. People have questions, whether it's related to your job search, if it's using AI in your job, how are we using AI in the product set, career advice, like there's so much going on. So I'm super excited to hear from our three panelists today. And I do want to say thank you so much, Aura. They have been our sponsor for this event series. So they are obviously hiring. Go to venturefizz.com/Aura and you'll see all their job openings there. To kick things off here, I did want to do a quick poll to get a read of our audience. So last week I failed at this. So I'm going to try it again and see if I can do a better job. So this is a poll. I just want to get a sense of who's here. So are you actively looking for a new position? Are you part of a talent team, HR, people ops, or are you just here eager to learn? So, there's a lot of things that we're covering today. So I just want to get a read. As people are filling that in and more people are coming in, the chat feature is enabled. So feel free to chime away, comments, discussions, questions. There is a Q&A section in Zoom too, so you can use that. It's up to you. Like I'll be monitoring both, and sometimes I try to feed in the questions in the overall discussion, or I will, save time for the Q&A towards the end as well. So we've got a lot of people looking for a new position. And then it's split. The other 50% are here to learn or are part of talent teams. So, all right, cool. Thanks for participating in that. I guess one other thing to get the discussion chat thing going. What role are you currently in? Sales, product management, marketing, HR, finance, engineering. So I do everything, but so I'm a founder, I guess. So add away in the chat feature. But you're here to obviously hear from these three great leaders, not just from me. So we have Sarah, Kristin, and Rekha joining us. Thank you all for joining. I know you're incredibly busy. There's so much happening at Aura, and we're going to get into each of your professional backgrounds. But Kristin, I thought it would be perfect for you to talk about Aura. What is Aura? What do you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us again, Keith. It's great to see you all. Aura is a digital safety platform, specifically and kind of custom built for families, not just for individuals. We are about 6 years old, so we started in the space strictly in kind of digital security, and we've really expanded and evolved over the past few years. So as you think about sort of the threat landscape, and we're talking about AI today, that's also very much applicable in terms of like how rapidly the threat landscape has evolved and how sophisticated the different ways that, because our lives are lived online, people can find your personal data and use it to do any number of things, from steal your identity, commit financial fraud, things that nobody wants to have happen to them. So we kind of differentiate in the space by making digital security actually really simple and easy to use, and something that people don't hate, which is not an easy task, but it's something that we think is really critical, because if there's any friction involved, people will not do it. So we have a really great footprint in that digital security space. And over the past 12 months, and a big part of our path forward is also expanding into digital well-being. So what we've sort of learned is that people definitely want protection from all of the bad actors and threats that are out there. But once they're safe, there's also a lot of people really struggling with just their own relationship with the internet and wanting to stop doom scrolling at night, wanting to spend more time with their families, wanting to be more productive at work. So we have a growing portfolio of solutions for all ages. So we have tools for parents to help keep their kids safe online starting at a very young age. And we also have new well-being tools for adults who want to kind of take control of where their time and attention is going. So that kind of concentric circles, if you can think about it that way, of safety and well-being, is what Rekha and Sarah and I wake up thinking about every day and figuring out how we can do it better, faster, stronger.
And the company is, one of the top growing consumer companies out there. Your most recent round of funding was a $140 million Series G that was announced back in March. And I don't think many companies can claim to have Robert Downey Jr., yes, Iron Man, on the board of directors. So, like,
Just one,
what
I
a
think. Just us.
right. So it's an amazing piece of, and to have Iron Man on your board when you're doing what you do of helping people is amazing. So, and then Rekha is at their beautiful offices in the Seaport. So they're headquartered in Boston. I visited their offices. They hosted our product management community. They are stunning. So I would probably be going to the office every day if I worked there. Anyways, Rekha, why don't we start with you as far as your background? So you're the company's CTO. Like, let's talk about, kind of your career progression, different steps along the way of to where you are today.
Yeah. Thank you, Keith. So my career progression is pretty much, I'm in engineering all the way through. I have close to 34 years of experience in engineering. 17 and 18 years I've been in development in many different stages, starting from building something. I started my career as an engineer building database engines. So currently it's a part of, like, one example is Oracle currently has this piece of technology, which is way back when relational database didn't exist. I built that as a,
You did? Wow.
I was one of the many developers.
Right.
So I come from sort of like that background, and then I transitioned to consumer-facing web, and that my first company was UPromise, actually. I got a taste of like what consumer-facing technology looks like. This is early days of web, 1.0 actually. And then series of few more startup I worked at and ended at TripAdvisor. I stayed at Trip for 13 years, where we saw transition from Web 2.0 to 3.0 and all the cool technology where people built custom solutions because the technology didn't exist. So we had a homegrown caching solution, we had a homegrown version of microservices and things like that, and then we saw the AWS coming in and sort of transitioning into sort of new and Web 3.0, and so I stayed there for 13 years in a management role, and Trip had a fantastic culture of engineering and management and ownership, and that's what caused me to transition from individuals to the individual contributor to a management role. So I started as a director of engineering, moved to a VP of engineering role, had a fairly large team at Trip. And during COVID, I decided to take a retirement, and that lasted for 3 months. And I did up at GoPuff, heading GoPuff's engineering and engineering, data science, and data. Part of it, GoPuff was in a unique space of, again, consumer and logistics side. So it seemed like a fascinating technology challenge to go build that out. So that's GoPuff. And I took a year of a break from GoPuff, and now I'm at Aura as a leading engineering at Aura.
And like when I think of TripAdvisor, and I'm assuming GoPuff too, it was very data-driven type of
Super
product.
data-driven. If you took the data away, there's not, I mean, what else you will do there, right? So TripAdvisor was my first learning experience of like how we can really drive consumer behaviors in a very in a data-driven way. So we did personalization, we did tailor to our consumer when a lot of this technology has evolved, like now we have as Sarah would talk more into the AI world of this, but we did all of those things. Trip was a very heavily data-driven company, and so is GoPuff, right? Because we had a data from consumer, we had a data from consumer, also from the retailers, and then logistics side of it, right? So marrying all those three data together to build the product.
Right. Sarah, how about your background? What's your professional journey look like?
It's always really interesting whenever people ask me this question because it's been very, very windy, I have to say. So I'm actually an epidemiologist by training, primarily focused in like computational epidemiology. So during COVID, it was funny. I remember coming back to the United States from Italy once, and somebody asked me, "Oh, what do you do here?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm an epidemiologist." And they're like, "Is that skin?" I'm like, "No." Nobody had any idea what that was
Right.
until 2020, in which case like
Mhm.
epidemiology suddenly became like this really, really important thing. One of the key points in like my entire career journey has been that I've been working primarily in driving insights to data and building out actions as a result of data. So a lot of that is in like foundational methods. So as we think about like simulation modeling, agent-based modeling, like functional programming, all of that is driving sort of the ways in which we think about how data drives systems. Data drives the way the world works, how the world operates. If you think about sort of your daily life and your health, or for instance, your safety or your transportation, that is all being driven by captured data as a result of your behavior. And that fundamentally drives all of the ways in which we work and think. So going from epidemiology, I ended up like really focusing on health tech and then ended up going into consumer goods at the Estee Lauder companies, working in enterprise data science and advanced analytics, really identifying sort of how we as a corporate entity could actually help drive data-driven decision-making behavior and also ensuring that our consumers actually love our product and really helping them identify where along the consumer journey can we actually have like important interventional approaches to ensure that consumers experience our product to the greatest satisfaction that is possible. And then I actually ended up joining Aura after that. It's a nice sort of like intersection of healthcare, technology, and data science and AI moving forward. So, yeah.
Cool. How about you, Kristin?
So my career started in sales, and I did that for a couple of years, and I was young and I got bored. In hindsight, that was like the best, easiest, well-paying job I've ever had. I should have stayed in sales, but I loved telling the story about it was working with nonprofits and selling fundraising software. So after a couple of years, I moved to marketing and did that for a couple of years, and then was interviewing for other companies. And I was actually interviewing to be staying in marketing, but I met the man who is still now my mentor, and half an hour into the interview, he was like, "I want you to be our product manager." And that was my first product management job. It was at Equifax. That was, gosh, I don't know, 15 years ago. And I've never left product. It's definitely my happy place. So I stayed at Equifax for 8 years and had the unique pleasure of taking the job as the head of identity protection and financial wellness 2 weeks before we lost the identities of everyone in America, if you all remember that data
Yes.
breach. So that was, and here I am back at identity and fraud protection. So that's how you know Aura is a great company. I swore I would never come back, but I was actually recruited away from Equifax by an early AI company who identified passive candidates who would be ripe for a new job. So long story short, there's several of us at Equifax that came to Aura, and I think the approach here is so unique around how we're tackling the problem area. So after talking to our CEO, despite thinking I would never come back to identity and fraud, here I am, and it's been 4 years, and now I'm the head of product, and it's gone very quickly, and we love it. So it's been a journey.
Well, you're able to build the platform that helps defend against those breaches. So,
That's exactly right. Yes.
yeah. All right, back to you, Sarah. So your title is Chief AI Officer. That's a new title that I'm starting to see, but it's not very common. So what does that role mean? Like what does the Chief AI Officer do?
That is such a good question. It actually differs by a lot of different companies. So chief AI officers, for instance, Cleveland Clinic just hired a new chief AI officer. There's lots of chief AI officers today in startups and in other sort of large organizations. I think a lot of it ultimately is where you want your product and where you want your services to go and how you're thinking about that relative to the work that you need to deliver on. Today at Aura, a chief AI officer really focuses on how are we leveraging AI in order to bring the best consumer experience? How are we leveraging AI in order to ensure that we are building fast and at pace so that we can keep up with the technology landscape? How do we govern it and make sure that it's safe, unbiased, that we are training and putting the proper guardrails around that? And how do we implement it in a way that is scalable and observable in the long term? But then behind the scenes in all of this isn't just the AI that you see every day now as a result of, ChatGPT and the LLMs, Gemini, all of these different things that you're seeing come about. AI, quote unquote, has been around for many, many years. We can talk about agent-based modeling from way back in the day when we were talking about like evolutionary biology. That has been focused on machine learning, AI, and how organisms evolve. A lot of the thinking has evolved throughout time, and as hardware has improved, our capabilities have improved, and our ability to ingest a lot of data. But it doesn't eliminate the importance, for instance, of older machine learning models or how we think about optimization of various different simulation or database models. So a lot of that as well falls under the umbrella of AI. So we talk about machine learning and optimization of that. Like these are things that are very, very important for us to continue to monitor, find ways in order to deploy scalably and ensure that the data that they are ingesting is providing the right level of insight and providing the safe level of insight that we need.
And like, what does your team look like? How's your team structured?
Yeah, so today my team includes advanced analytics, so commercial analytics, data science, which focuses on our core products, AI engineering, and then subsequently machine learning operations. So those are the top 4 pillars of my organization, and each of those have sub-functions within them, such as observability, such as deployments, such as monitoring, and all of that as well. So a lot of it is ensuring that we have the right QA and infrastructure in place to monitor our safety and our deployments.
Right. Rekha, I'm going to come back to you in a second, but Kristin, so as you're thinking about, the user experience, leveraging AI in the product roadmap, focus on the next phase of growth for Aura and online safety for families, like what is your philosophy around the usage of AI and that overall consumer product experience?
Yeah, it's so important. So Aura has always, our like key principles in the security world are we want to be proactive and convenient. Proactive meaning it's not enough to alert the user after the threat has been detected. We need to give them tools that prevent it from happening in the first place. And convenient meaning whenever we can do the remediation work for the user, we have to, because we know no one will do it. Like how many of you have gotten a breached password alert and been like, I don't want to change my password right now. So when we think about AI and what that is enabling in terms of the level of automation and personalization that it can provide to our users, it allows us to have just an exponentially better conversation with them. So if you think about a product like ours, our job is to tell you scary things like we found your social security number on the dark web, or we detected this really scary thing that your kid is doing on the internet. And now we have to help you as a parent figure out like what to do next and what to say. So whether it's using LLMs to get deeply personalized about like based on what we know about you and your parenting style and like what we've dealt with you in the past, it can really feel like a totally tailored solution specific to one individual, which is huge. And this is no offense to Sarah at all, but I think like the best AI, we just kind of want it to, you want the best AI to like not even feel like AI. Like it's just a great experience. And I think we've achieved some of that with some of the early features we've put out around just enabling these hyper-personalized chats. And that's the goal, is we want just this magical experience where you feel like your problem gets solved really, really effectively and that the product knew you really well. And you assume it might have been a human that you were actually chatting with.
Well, design is so core, right, to that experience. And I think everybody remembers the first time you saw ChatGPT and you were like, what? Like, I can't believe like what I just witnessed. And large language models have been in existence for a long time. Yes, the hardware and technology has caught up to being able to process information quickly, but it was that first experience when you'll always remember like seeing something in the blink of an eye process information and create very high caliber results. So
Absolutely.
Rekha, how, like, your team has to execute this vision, right, of what Sarah and Kristin are working on. So how do you make these AI visions come to life?
Yeah, so our team is responsible for operationalizing Aura's AI vision and the user experience, and we look at not just as a layer on top of the product, but as a foundational shift in how our platform adapts, protects, personalizes experience for millions of users. So we are looking to turn Aura's AI vision into like a scalable, trustworthy reality that permeates the entire platform. So how do we do this? So thinking about that more in terms of platformization of intelligence across Aura's ecosystem. What does it require? It's moving away from isolated AI experiment to actually think of agentic intelligence at a scale. Challenges we will have in that is design and deploying modular intelligent agent that can understand context, take action, and coordinate with other existing technologies or consume the existing backend system without compromising latency and reliability.
Yeah.
And at scale, if you think of then we have to have millions of family to protect. So how do we think about the device and financial safety? So agent making sure it's a goal-directed, fault tolerance, composable across product surfaces. There's many other things goes into that, thinking about building modular capabilities, right? Like developing platform that exposes our backend services as atomic composable capabilities. And so bridging that gap between old and new, otherwise it becomes a task which would be hard to achieve, right? Like if we start building everything new, but we do have to have some bridge, and how do we decide the length of the bridge and the and the stability, what goes into that, building that bridge.
So I'm gonna like just open this up to the three of you, whoever wants to chime in. This has to be a very collaborative process. You're working at such massive scale. So how are you working together to shape and execute this strategy of incorporating AI into the product suite?
I'll take a stab. I think Rekha and Sarah both kind of touched on it, and it's this, I'm sure hopefully this resonates with a lot of people on the call, but these two have it harder than I do a little bit, because it's like I'm definitely, under pressure, and I share the desire of how do we deliver like the best possible features and experiences to our customers in our core product using AI. But Sarah and Rekha are also under pressure of how do they use AI to actually build those features that we then deliver to our customers. So it's like it's in the how and in the what and the why. Our CEO wants everything to be agentic, so we align like very early and very often on like when is this a problem that actually really needs to be solved? But let's not do AI for the sake of AI. Let's save it for the problems that really can't be solved through any other method. I don't know. In my opinion, all three of us are pretty low ego and very high urgency. So like we're very comfortable being direct, and we try to make decisions quickly. But I think I try to stay very much in the lane of like, here's what we need to solve for the user and why. And I have the great fortune of working with these two to kind of tell me the how, and that works very well. Unless they say it doesn't, which they can do.
Well, Sarah, so like because a lot of companies are figuring out their AI strategy. Maybe they're not AI native, and they're on the fly trying to figure things out. like what advice would you have of, incorporating that AI strategy leadership component to the equation and working across the different functional teams?
Yeah, I think that the ways in which LLMs have become extremely popular have made it very accessible to a lot of, I think, folks that are traditionally not considered sort of non-technical. And I think that that has enabled a lot of very, very, very fast product build and thinking, which is exciting. And it's very cool because it brings to life a lot of ideas that were just held in the minds of creative people that maybe just like didn't really necessarily know how to build it. And I think that that is one piece of what has been enabled very recently. The reality of the implementation of AI in a scalable, robust, reliable way requires a deep foundational knowledge of what it is that you're actually building and how to build it and how to scale it. That inherently can be augmented by AI today as a sort of knowledge tool that will help you search and summarize and understand in terms of how we think about typical LLMs. But if you are building high risk, high requirement models and using very, very sort of sensitive data. Specifically, for instance, I'll give you an example in the case of healthcare where you're trying to better understand whether or not, a drug is going to work on your specific disease. These are very, very high stakes approaches that require an understanding of foundations. How does the model actually come up with a decision? What is the transparency and interpretability of that? How do you actually build it? How do you test it? How do you ensure you're not overfitting? This is foundational knowledge that I think is very, very important that often gets lost as a part of building something very fast and very straightforward. I would encourage everybody that is really interested in AI and building with AI to take a first stab at getting very excited about thinking around, how can we use this to speed up our work? But subsequently, how do we train our workforce to align with understanding what are the necessary foundations to ensure that what we're building is safe and robust and bulletproof towards any additional risk to think through? As organizations are thinking through this, it's like, yeah, we can build prototypes all day long, but then how do you take that and scale it appropriately? And what are the foundational things that you need in order to do that?
And I guess to piggyback on that, so how are you staying ahead of the curve? Because everything is just rapidly changing. So, I mean, it's crazy right now.
It feels like everything is rapidly changing all of the time, but we all remember 2018 when deep learning became like this big thing, right? And everybody was jumping on the deep learning train. But the inherent sort of issues with deep learning is that it required deeper foundational math, right? Today with LLMs, it's more of a product focus in terms of how you access the knowledge via LLMs. I think that ultimately technology has always moved fast. I don't think technology is moving particularly fast today. It's just that an end user that typically doesn't have the technical expertise can see it, and therefore they're like, "Whoa, why is this so fast?" But in the past, everything has moved this fast. We keep up. You do your readings. You read your white papers. You get hands to keyboard and play with it and do the work, and you'll eventually it will eventually sort of level out. In which case there will be the very standard tool sets that everybody will be aware of and be using into the future.
Yeah. Rekha, so I provided a question for the audience. Some people are chiming in. Like we're gonna switch over to internal use of AI tools. So I'm just curious as to what the audience is using for tools in your day-to-day job to increase your productivity. But obviously, engineering is a key growth area. You're seeing the adoption of many engineering tools out there that are helping. How are you leveraging AI to increase
Yeah.
productivity of the engineering team?
Good question. So right now we are more using more as a dev addition to dev tooling. So Cursor, for example, we did a run for Cursor as a pilot case, and that seems to be it was only yesterday, one of the team members says that there's a feature they were able to it's in one of our new initiatives side, and they were able to sort of implement everything within 24 to 72 hours under that, which would have taken a normal team at least at a minimum, 2 or 3 weeks of somebody, and this is just one person being able to do that. We had not experimented as much, but we are Cursor is very much in use. We are experimenting with tools on QA side in generation of synthetic data, and so that team is using a lot of Claude on that, and then we have from AWS. I think looks like the QL. I think Sarah, is that right? I forget. They're using with that under that, and also Git. Yeah, Kiro.
Kiro, yeah, okay.
So we're trying to. This was just organically was happening into the team, and now we are looking to sort of standardize ourselves into handful of platforms.
I'm curious because there's so many tools out there, and I would imagine engineers have, or any job function, different flavors that they like to experiment with and then adopt. So how do you standardize what they should be using for the tool set?
Yeah, that we are in the process of that, right? So and so it looks like current winner seems to be Cursor. Pretty much like, other than what we get on the Git side of it, is there's a pretty strong vote for that. So
got it. Okay, so Cursor's in the lead. How about product management, Kristin? How is AI and the tool sets that are out there changing the world of product?
I mean, I will never write a PRD in long form ever again, and I don't think
Right?
it's interesting because it doesn't take the important work out of it. Like what I have found is that the team is getting really good at like thinking through the problem and the context, but like they can really put just like that raw information into like more of a prompt or kind of a brain dump into a document, and then use AI to like format this into a PRD, or do the PRD but put it in and be like, what did I miss? And the speed and like the identification of edge cases, like just in that has been, I think, a game changer. Figma has some awesome AI tools built in that is like really accelerated, like, different user flow simulations and things like that. One of my favorite use cases that I highly recommend others steal this idea. I have a phenomenal product manager who is moving to our sister company at the end of the month, and he used Gemini to build his name is Wen, and he built virtual Wen. So he uploaded an obscene amount of, documentation, customer interviews, all of his notes, and like a chat layer on top. So he's like, you can ask it anything. And then he went on vacation and he came back. He was like, I ask virtual Wen questions all the time. It has so much more memory than I do. So that was a really cool use case of just like, how do you put yourself on autopilot? So it's everywhere. And I think the most important thing is there's no like judgment or stigma around using AI to do your job faster or more efficiently. I think there's some, especially as I'm interviewing product managers, they're like, is it okay to use AI at your company? And we're like, yes. Yes, absolutely. It doesn't replace work, but we think it really amplifies it.
But is there a line that someone could cross?
Yeah, I mean, if the PRD had been generated by AI, that would be obvious very, very quickly if you hadn't like put in the work of giving it, what it needs. But I haven't come across any like use cases where it was like, oh, you took this really, I think the team is really thoughtful around. Most product managers like love to build products, and it's really like, how do you find the pieces of the job that are super manual or would have taken you longer, and just use it to expedite, certain types of research. And, I put a lot of like things in like getting visuals generated that would like help a team understand a flow. If I can just describe the workflow, like it saves time in getting information into a format that I think is consumable by the teams that need information from product managers. So I'll keep you posted, but no, I haven't had to like stop anybody yet.
Well, I think it's just common sense, right? Like
Yeah.
you shouldn't have these tools do your job for you. That's going to be obvious if you're doing that. And interviewing, don't don't just let ChatGPT. So we're going to talk about that. I want to get into that Yeah. Does your team use Chat PRD?
We don't use that particular, there is a large rallying cry from our security office to try to use Gemini whenever possible because we have all the
Right.
licensing and we have company secrets going into PRDs and things like that. So I try to encourage my team to use it and to come let me know if it's not giving them what they need. But no, has that been an effective one for you?
I don't use it, but I've seen it out there in the product management community of it's a product that was built for that use case specifically. So creating a PRD.
Cool.
So all right, Sarah, how about your team?
In terms of using AI,
Yeah, tool
in
sets and
yeah, ultimately, I think, AI today for data science is used primarily as a way to search for information and to better understand the specifics of the methods that we implement. That can be a part of Gemini Pro to do deep research, for instance, on understanding, for instance, the existing sort of academic literature around self-harm, for instance, something that we're looking at in terms of building out predictive modeling for. But then in addition, we also use, for instance, Cursor in order to help us develop code faster. But ultimately, in order to sort of mitigate the sort of, generalized use of AI without checking, we have a very, very rigorous code review process. And we also use AI as a part of the code review process to understand sort of, where exactly people are making changes or where we might be implementing risky sort of model assumptions in our approach. So lots of that as well.
all right, we're gonna switch it over to career advice and hiring. So you'll read job descriptions and there'll be qualifications. We are looking for X number of years of experience working with whatever flavor of AI tools or whatever components of AI. And it's reminiscent of each platform shift where employers are looking for people with the experience, yet the experience isn't necessarily there yet. So what are your expectations in terms of that AI skill level on your team? Rekha, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so on engineering side, I think the parallel I will draw it in 8, 10 years, maybe 12 years back. Sorry, a little bit more back, but there used to be this notion that we need a separation of front-end engineer, back-end engineer, and then there was some companies took the route of generalist, which can dabble on both sides of it. And whether it's a back-end, front-end, or infrastructure as code, right? They were, and so for example, TripAdvisor was one of those companies. And so when I think of career, I think of as every engineering graduate who's graduating or existing software engineer 1, 2, or SE should absolutely look at how to leverage the current tools, current technologies, and it makes it easy for you, something like Cursor or Claude, how to build more technology using this technology. So I don't know about 10, 15 years of experience. That's, in my mind, that's kind of ludicrous. This whole thing has become, it came to production or to masses at just only, in last 2, 3 years. So it's more about looking at how do I have played with this? How have I thought about it in existing problem space and what I have built, which I can show and share, right? That's how.
Do you give engineers a case study, like a way to show what they are capable of?
No, so this is a really good question. So yesterday I was talking to one of my team in partnership team, and I was like, why have you thought about this? Have you thought about automating or dabbling into something like what would it take us if we were to write an agent here for you? What you're missing? Have you looked at it? So it's I think of it yet another incarnation of microservices, GraphQL services, but it's supported by knowledge base, which can do things for you, make those things faster for you. So it's a little bit different, right? Like what Sarah's world is like, if it's a customer facing, it's a very different. But it's if it is internal in tooling, like being able to play with something like that, right? Like I would encourage everybody to absolutely use it, existing tools and technologies. And I was reading the other day some article about how some of the codes, if you try to generate it at a scale, the code quality is pretty compromised in some cases, right? So it's not that you don't need to know the coding. You have to know the coding so that you can correct the system and kind of it did require the person I was giving you example earlier, how he was able to develop something which would take us many weeks. He did say majority of his time went in sort of fixing the code, right? So you still have to know your trades. The way I look at AI is like, how could I do this at scale? Like, it's the thinking process also, right? Like, how do we, when you think of designing of any software system, how do we architect that, right? What guardrails we can put it in various systems, right? It's a little bit different, right? Like, how do we abstract the complexity behind reusable components, right? Like that's how we used to build software. You can think of agents like that too, right? So it's, worry about how the orchestration would work on this. If you had a multiple services or multiple agent, like how do you orchestrate to serve a user experience?
Now, Sarah, obviously for your team, you're hiring people that have a lot of experience working in data science, right? Like, so what are your expectations?
Yeah, so it was actually kind of funny. I was actually just talking about this with somebody the other day. One of the things about data science and hiring for expertise in data science is that what we test for is an understanding of the foundations of data science. So everybody on the team today, for instance, can solve linear regression using matrix algebra on like simple least squares. That is a requirement for understanding data science. I think once you get that far, I'm not particularly, to be totally honest, like super impressed if you can implement a CNN or an RNN, or if you like are really good at embeddings, or if you know logistic regression. I mean, you should, for whatever it's worth, you should know that in detail. But the key is to have a curiosity and the bravery to be willing to go and solve a problem, figure out what the fundamentals you need in order to solve that problem, and to be able to identify what are the steps that you need to do in order to get there. A lot of the times, I think folks get intimidated, or they're worried that they won't be able to get through it, or they don't even know where to start. And I think a lot of it is just being self-aware enough to say, what don't I know? What do I need to research in order to understand that? Once I understand that, that will give me a pathway to solving the problem. And those are the types of people that I'm looking to hire. Like, we're talking 10, 15 years of experience. Like, to Rekha's point previously, I don't think that years of experience solves for the fundamental need to be curious and to be able to solve your own problems. I think that that's actually what I personally look for when we hire and when we think about AI. Ultimately, if you're curious about how AI works, you should have an understanding in terms of doing the research to say, what is the difference, for instance, between a BERT model and, for instance, a GPT model? How do we think about those differences? When are they applicable in different scenarios, and why? Like, those are the types of questions you should be asking yourself, and that information is freely available.
So the product management community that we organize, there's a lot of I think concern around, how do I level up my skills to be in this AI era if the products I've worked on didn't have that as a component? So, Kristin, what are your expectations of domain experience, technical knowledge, like as it
Yeah.
relates to the scale that Aura is operating under with this AI strategy?
Yeah, I would definitely echo Sarah's, I think curiosity. You can tell palpably when you're talking to somebody about like how have you used AI in your personal or professional life? Forget about building an AI product before. Like you can tell when somebody's like, oh, let me explain to you. And like if they've had a magical experience and are excited about like the opportunities that AI is bringing to the product management world, I can pick up on that pretty quickly. And that's like a big green light. I have several product managers on my team who I've watched them have to learn how to become what was a typical software development product manager. They've had to become AI product managers. And I've seen that they've been able to do that very successfully. And it really does stem from like they want to learn and they're very curious, and it can be humbling, like especially at a certain stage of your career. It was humbling for me because this is the first time that I've ever had to hire, and I have an open role right now for an AI product manager who will specifically work with Sarah's applied AI squad to build things like the platform where we'll have an Ask Me Anything chat and a lot of this stuff. So I had to sit down with her applied AI engineers and be like, I'm not embarrassed to admit this. I've never written a job description for an AI product manager before, and I'm not entirely sure what I should be looking for. So I would encourage everyone who's interviewing, like, just know that like for hiring managers, this is new too. And we're all kind of learning it together. So be curious. And I think that the ways that you have been able to apply and use AI, even if it hasn't been building the product, are still relevant. We do like leverage like homework assignments and kind of like live test is not the right word, but we do like an exercise during the interview that is much more anchored around like we want to understand how you think about a problem, and we want to see what questions you ask, because we do not expect, even if you've built AI products before, building one in Aura's ecosystem with all of the things that go into just our security restrictions and the PII we have, it's all different. So don't be nervous and do be curious. And I don't think we all know if anyone says they have more than 2 years experience, it's irrelevant anyway, because everything's changing so fast. So we're all learning together.
What recommendations would you have for continuous learning? Like, are there, different courseware out there? Is it just, hey, just, experiment, right? Like what's your piece of advice on how to just start to gain traction and upskill?
I'd love to hear from Sarah and Rekha on this too. I did two things. Like I'm still a notebook and paper person for certain things in my life, and I keep it on my desk. And I keep a list of things that I don't want to do anymore that I know I need to actually spend time figuring out how to automate them. And I like book a half hour on my calendar every week to be like, I'm gonna figure this out, because it does take time to be like, okay, I'm spending an hour doing the same write-up every week. There's got to be a place where I could just be like throwing my notes and then hit generate the thing. But you actually have to commit to being like, I'm going to carve out an hour and I'm just going to like play with some AI tools. The other thing is that my product team has like every other week, it's just a product team informal meeting. And like this has become what we talk about. Like everybody's doing different experiments and like talking about like a tool that really helped, or like just a learning from like as we're building different LLM features. Like, I mean, we share like funny hallucinations that happened, and like it's, I think just like being really comfortable asking people what they've learned and what they're using is probably the best thing right now.
Yes, Sarah, what do you recommend?
Continuous learning, I think, is different for everybody. And, it all depends on people's personal learning styles. Certain people really, really benefit from coursework, and certain coursework is really, really good. And they have different styles as well. So I think a lot of it is like looking at your personal learning style and understanding sort of how best you learn. If there's hands to keyboard work, if there's coursework, if there's any of that sort, working with folks that are professional in this area and finding mentorship there. These are all ways in which you can develop. And I think the key point is to have a specific use case, to have something that you're like, you know what, I would like to solve this problem in my life, or I would like to learn more about this, and set a goal and go and get it.
Rekha?
Yeah, what Sarah said is, I'll echo the sentiment of like, be curious. From an engineering side, like there's always this, most of the engineers have this tinkering nature, right? So lean into it and there are many tools we have available depending on what where people are in their journey. So whether Google has many tools where free resources. There was a very good YouTube video I remember, like, because I was trying to I had to understand the whole thing about like how LLM itself work and looking at the transformation, because without that I couldn't as an engineer in me, couldn't like see through past just the LLM. I had to understand exactly, okay, I see now this has happened, right? So it's a really good video. The name is escaping me, but if you look at the guy who did the version 1.0 of ChatGPT, he had a very good tutorial on like how the LLM itself is like built, this entire machinery. Like, so being able to look just the infrastructure, right? Like the transformation, different layers. He did a great job. So that was my intro to this, like getting interested in learning of that, right? Like I come from a traditional background of building, using data models that I understood a bit, but this was new to me. So the way I learned went on that. Google had many classes, and then I used it in my real time, like, sort of automating all kinds of calendar personal calendar versus work calendar. This weekend I was thinking, but I should look at how to, I want to summarize the entire Slack messages. We get
You let me know.
Yeah, so this is something which has been like going in my head. So I have not figured it out yet, but it is in my to-do list to go figure it out. So it's an example of like, again, be curious, go learn.
Yeah.
We have
Ask others,
information available.
Yeah, everybody is in the same shoes learning, right? Tracy, thanks so much for the suggestion. Promptingguide.ai. I haven't heard about that yet, so I'll check that out. Me, like, just because I'm kind of like embedded into the product world, Lenny is he's like a celebrity now. I mean, he's got his podcast, he's got his newsletter. So I put a link into a recent newsletter edition. So you can sign up for it. It's free. You can pay to be part of the community and get like additional pieces of content from him. But he had a post with another guest on how to build an AI co-pilot. And what I thought was just amazing is it really broke down step by step. Here's what you do, step one. And it was different flavors. It was ChatGPT, Gemini. So it was like, oh, this is cool. Because I have this podcast that has 380 something episodes of entrepreneurs and venture capitalists talking about building startups. And I'm like, wouldn't it be great to have all the transcripts and like Kristin, your colleague, what he built, what's it called? When?
His name is Wen.
Yeah.
Yes, he called it virtual Wen. Yeah.
Virtual When. So to have this information in this repository where people could ask questions and get responses of, oh yeah, that was discussed in episode 100 and whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, you can hit generate a podcast and it's just like random learnings from virtual Wen.
Yeah, that's
On any
amazing.
topic. Cool.
Yeah, and How I AI is amazing. That's a spinoff of Lenny's podcast. And the woman that runs that podcast actually was the creator of Chat PRDs. Anyways, question. Does Aura utilize AI in program project management? Any applications that you would recommend for that?
In program or project management?
Yeah.
I think so.
Keeping the trains on the track.
Program management, we don't use anything yet. It's the oldest style is still.
They just stock all the product managers and engineers on Slack all day. Maybe there's some AI in the background, but no, we really haven't. We have some automation around like rolling up updates from all the different platforms that have tickets and dependencies into like dashboards. But yeah, no, do you have any tips?
I don't. If the audience does, chime in, please. Um, so the another question that came up, it was directed towards Sarah. Um, what specific measures and frameworks is Aura using to mitigate bias in your AI system? So you responded in the chat, but I just wanted the audience to hear your response.
Yeah, I think, one of the key points to products, and as you sell products, is that inherently your subpopulation is always going to be a little bit biased because typically people who are concerned about the same things or need to resolve the same things are all quite similar in terms of the specifics of their demographics, their ability to pay, for instance, the various different pieces of marketing that they respond to. But one of the key points is that we perform a lot of EDA against this data to better understand our consumer deeply. So what do they look like? What are the edge cases? Where are we missing certain levels, types of data? And sometimes we consider sort of reweighting our model predictions against some of the lesser observed individuals that are a little bit different than other folks. And separately, we also ultimately, implement fairness metrics, red teaming, ensuring that we better sort of understand like all of our model outputs. So what that means is that you go and you adversarially test your model. You say like, if our simulated data actually looks like this, are the model results going to be equivalent and are they as expected? And being able to document those expectations and make sure that your model is either performing as expected or if it's not, understanding why. That's where model interpretability becomes incredibly important and one of the things that I push pretty hard and understanding sort of the underlying data that supports that.
So each of you have worked your way into an executive leadership role. What advice would you have for others that are trying to do the same? Especially, I have two daughters, they're in college, and I want them to work into whatever their dreams are. So what advice would you have? Rekha, I'll start with you.
I think it's just being curious about all. I would go back to that, like, being curious, always be a learner of the things which excites you. And there wasn't like, I mean, I didn't go, get an MBA and, set myself as an executive. That was not the goal I started with. So it was more like I liked doing the development work. I got curious about knowing what does this problem looks like when there's 3 teams or 5 teams, and kind of organically I went into that. But what drove me there is like curiosity, solving the problem which was faced by the teams overall, and how to scale. So I was driven by that.
I'll add to that too around like, I think there's, if you were asking specifically about women, I think there's a lot of data out there around women are so much more likely to not go for the job if they don't feel that they are qualified compared to a man. I will admit, like, if this job had been posted and I would have thought, hey, should I apply to be the chief product officer? I probably would not have, because I have not had this title before. Like, I was asked to take this job. So I think my advice would be like, go for it. Like, you will never get the job if you wait until you've done it before. So you'd have to apply and you have to be confident that you can do it. And I actually, Rekha reinforced this for me a few weeks ago and might not even realize that she did it. But a big learning for me, like stepping into this level of executive management, is don't be afraid to ask for help. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength of like, if you need a great number 2, I think a lot of us are just hardwired to be like, oh, this is incredibly chaotic and this is more work than I can handle. So I will double down and I'll do it myself. And it's like a certain level of leadership. It's like, no, you actually can't do that. And you really need to, as early as possible, flag, what you need to be successful, and not feel like that's a sign of weakness. It's definitely a sign of strength.
That's great. Sarah?
Honestly, I sort of feel as though folks should be brave. And to Kristin's point, go for it. Do the things that you're interested in as a part of who you think you should be and not as a part of what the world thinks you need to be. I think a lot of it is being genuine to yourself. And sometimes you end up climbing the corporate ladder and being at the top of leadership, and you wonder to yourself, is this really what I want? And I think constantly questioning that and not being afraid to address these questions directly is really, really important. And yeah, being able to sort of be aware of what you want and why you want it. I think that's the key point.
Love that. Well, we're already at time. That 60 minutes flew by. So I want to do a virtual clap for our three amazing panelists. Thank you so much for taking the time. And thank you to Aura for sponsoring this great event series. They are hiring. Go to venturefizz.com/Aura and you'll see their job listings there. And if anyone, we're not connected on LinkedIn, definitely send me an invite and we'll connect there. I hope to see you here next Wednesday because we're going to have our next event. So next Wednesday at noon, we'll hope to see you there. All right, everybody have a great day. And thanks again for the panel. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, see you everyone.